Hello, this is Mrs. Mackey. Today we're going to be talking about finding and adding opposites. By the end of this video, you should be able to explain at least 2 ways you can tell numbers are opposites. If you see my page here, this is just a visual reminder of how you should have your iBook set up. Title and date at the top, the EQ, and then your lines dividing your paper for the Cornell notes. Remember, the essential question is what you have to know at the end of the lesson, and down at the bottom in the summary, you're going to be answering that question using at least 3 sentences. You've used number lines before, but the thing that we need to focus on when you're making your number line is that your intervals or your spaces are the same distance apart. We can't have them jumping around or it gets very confusing. Remember, positive numbers go to the right of 0, and negative numbers are to the left of 0. This is all review, but it's important things to keep in mind as we work through today's lesson. Another vocabulary word are integers. Integers are all the positive numbers, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're not just positive numbers, but they're positive whole numbers. No decimals, no fractions are allowed. So we start out with the positive whole numbers. We also include the number 0 and their opposites, numbers on the opposite side or the negative side of the number line. Notice I have examples, 1, 5, negative 101, but non-examples are just as important. So negative 1.5 is not an integer, and 2/3 is not an integer. Remember, you need to pause the videos and get the information down for your notes. You may include the number line in your notes, or you don't need to. Your choice. Okay. So another vocabulary word for this is opposites. Opposites are numbers that are the same distance from 0. If you look here, I have the number -2, and it is 2 spaces from 0. And opposite on the other side, kind of like a mirror from 0, is +2. Those numbers are opposites. Okay. Additive inverse. Additive inverses are 2 numbers that add up to 0. So if I have +5 and I add -5, it equals 0. Notice they are also opposites. They are opposites because -5 is 5 spaces from 0, and +5 is 5 spaces from 0. Okay. This is called an I do. An I do is for me to explain to you how to do the problem. Then we have you do's. That's where you pause the video and you do the problem. This example should be in your notes, but I would copy it when I'm done explaining it. Okay. Question: how do we find the opposite of -8? Well, if I look at this number line, I find -8. Well, that's 8 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, from 0. Well, +8 is also 8 spaces from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It sounds more complicated than it really is. A negative number 8 is the opposite of a positive number 8. The thing, though, that you need to remember is that you can tell 2 numbers are opposites if they are the same distance from 0. It's kind of one of the key points or the essential questions. Okay, now pause the video and do these problems, please. All right, you should have gotten the answer. The opposite of -7 is +7. You can put the plus sign there, but remember, it's an optional thing. You do not need to put it. But on number 2, you do have to have the negative sign. If you don't have the negative sign, it means +13. And number 3, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right? Let's move on to the other type of problem. Okay. Our next part is having to add opposites. We know they're opposites if they equal 0. One way to show or model one of our new mathematical standards is to have chips. So as you see here, I've got counters. Yellow is positive, but I put the little plus sign to help you remember, and reds are negatives, and I have the negative sign to help you remember. So I have positive 3s on top. Those are my yellows. This is positive 3. And on the bottom, I have 3 negatives, or negative 3. And something that's going to become important later as we look at other integer types of problems is that one positive and one negative cancel out in what we call a zero pair, because a negative and a positive together equals 0. So that's gone, it's 0. That's gone, it's 0. And it's gone again, it equals 0. So what is the sum of 3 and negative 3? Well, because they're opposites, we know it equals 0. Probably something you can do in your head, but the modeling or the picture is something that's important because you're going to need to model or show me with pictures how some of these answers work. Okay. Please use chips to help you do these problems. Pause it. Make sure you read carefully. There might be a trick in here. All right, for number 4, 8 plus negative 8, they're opposites, so it equals 0. 3 plus 3, these are not opposites. 3 plus 3 equals 6. Did I catch you? Negative 5 plus 5 equals 0. They're opposites. Okay. Here are the key concepts that you should have gotten in this lesson. I'm not going to read them to you. You're able to read. A good math student would include these in their notes. Although if you already have this information, you do not need to copy it again. This is just kind of a review slide. Remember, part of your Cornell notes, you have to write at least 2 questions that you have. These questions can be questions that you had or questions that I might ask you about the notes in class tomorrow. The last step of our Cornell notes is to answer the essential question. If you are ready to answer the question now, you can write the answer now and have your Cornell notes done. If you have questions that you need answered, though, you do need to wait until you get to class, ask your questions, and then write your summary. See you in class. TTFN.